Care to join me in a belt of scotch?
It's 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, but I haven't slept in days. Last chance. Oh, yeah.
Until now, this was the only way to get juice from an orange.
May 28th, 1998 was a day of tragedy in the world of comedy. Taken from us was an extremely talented comedic actor and voice actor in the most senseless way possible. Phil Hartman was a one-of-a-kind talent. His distinct voice and unique stage presence made him pretty much irreplaceable. Now, there's a lot of speculation about his death, but the facts are that his wife murdered him in his sleep when he served her divorce papers. I won't go into the other shit, I just want to say, if hell exists, I hope Bryn Hartman is burning there forever. Two of Phil Hartman's most memorable roles of all time are that of Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure in The Simpsons. So on what would have been his 74th birthday, I'm going to talk about the impact those two characters had on me, on The Simpsons as a whole, and on pop culture in general. I will be working on a video covering his work outside of The Simpsons in the future, probably around this time next year. This is mainly focused on his career in SNL, his movie career, and other voice roles, but Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz are such a major part of his career, and they're really where I was first exposed to Phil Hartman as a talent, and being that I spotlight The Simpsons rather frequently, it felt appropriate to give those two characters and Phil Hartman's other roles on the show their own video. Both Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz had their first appearances in the second season of The Simpsons, with Lionel Hutz appearing in Bart Gets Hit by a Car, and McClure appearing in Homer vs. Lisa and The Eighth Commandment. Lionel Hutz is probably one of, if not my favorite characters in the entire series, so I am going to start off with him. In his first appearance in Bart Gets Hit by a Car, Hutz was a sleazebag ambulance-chasing lawyer, but it was played relatively straight. He didn't have the wacky touch that fans would grow to love later on. The inspiration for Lionel Hutz was a Guyanese lawyer named Lionel Huts QC, who is the most successful lawyer in the world, as he has won 245 defenses against murder charges. I have no idea what the legal system is like in Guyana, but Jesus Christ. Not counting mere background appearances and non-speaking roles, Lionel Hutz has appeared in 30+ episodes of the series, and sometimes his appearances amounted to just a mere walk-on cameo or bit. Other times he would get more involved in the plot, but he was never the focal point of an episode. The closest thing Lionel Hutz gets to a spotlight is Marge on the Lam, where he babysits Bart and Lisa, but even then, it's like a tertiary role to Homer and Marge, and you could even say he takes a little bit of a back seat to Chief Wiggum. Lionel Hutz was the go-to character for any episode involving The Simpsons having legal troubles. He's a lawyer, an ambulance chaser, or a shifty-ass fucking shyster, but he is legally a lawyer. Oftentimes, he was depicted as being not a very good lawyer, but this would vary depending on what the episode was. Sometimes he was depicted as outright incompetent, not even knowing the simplest of legal terms.
I move for a bad court thingy.
You mean a mistrial?
Yeah. That's why you're the judge and I'm the law-talking guy.
The lawyer.
Right.
Other times he was depicted as being okay, but like pretty much the only lawyer that the Simpsons family could afford, but he was not able to stand up to much more skilled, high-priced lawyers. But most times he was depicted as sleazy and would resort to questionable tactics to win cases.
Mr. Hutz, we've been in here for 4 hours. Do you have any evidence at all?
Well, Your Honor, we've got plenty of hearsay and conjecture. Those are kinds of evidence.
It's also implied that he is or was engaged in some illegal activity on the side. Burning his things, changing his identity, and this is implied that he's done it more than once, running over Judge Snyder's dog.
Well, replace the word kinda with the word repeatedly, and the word dog with son.
And being engaged in a lot of generally questionable activity.
Millhouse, baby! Lionel Hutz, your new agent, bodyguard, unauthorized biographer, and drug dealer. Keep her away.
One could say he's very similar to Saul Goodman, but Saul Goodman is actually a good lawyer. Lionel Hutz's appearances really peaked in seasons 4 and 5. This is where he has the bulk of his most important appearances, but through his first appearance in season 2 until his final appearance in season 9, he remained one of the more consistent recurring characters, if not just for walk-on interaction. I guess those middle-late appearances were more limited because maybe Hartman was getting more work in Hollywood and dealing with his stupid whore wife and her abuse. I think what makes Lionel Hutz work as a character is the combination of the complete sleaze that he oozes and Phil Hartman's distinct voice. Like, if it was anybody else but Hartman, I don't think the character would be as well regarded as he was. Like, the whole sleazy promotions at his law firm and his clear issues with substance abuse, it's just not what you would expect from a man of that profession. Even in his first introduction, they lay it all out and reveal that he's a shyster. He is certainly in my top 10 sleazy characters of all time list. It speaks volumes to the talents of Phil Hartman that even a short Lionel Hutz appearance can boost the appeal of an episode astronomically. My personal favorite Lionel Hutz episode is Margin Chains. That seems like a real highlight of his shitty lawyering. He's a rare Simpsons side character who has never really had a flat appearance. You could drop Lionel Hutz in the middle of the most mid-fucking episode of the early years and he would kill it every time. In terms of presentation and use, Troy McClure is the complete opposite of Lionel Hutz. While Hutz had many supporting appearances and a few walk-ons in the series, he never really got a spotlight episode. Troy McClure was pretty much just a walk-on character. His only major roles consisted of acting as a host for both the Simpsons 138th episode Spectacular and the Simpsons spin-off Showcase Anthology episode. However, he appeared in many more episodes as a whole than Lionel Hutz did, and he actually got his own real spotlight episode in the season 7 episode A Fish Called Selma. McClure's biggest trait, to the point of it being a catchphrase, was introducing himself with the iconic line,
Hi, I'm actor Troy McClure. You might remember me from such driver's ed films as Alice's Adventures Through the Windshield Glass.
Troy McClure's appearances were relegated to appearing on the TV or in movies, or most famously, in a lot of instructional videos seen throughout the series. He rarely interacted with any of the main characters or even supporting characters, and he was rarely ever seen in person. He was depicted as this washed-up actor, and he was based off of actors Doug McClure and Troy Donahue. In fact, Doug McClure's daughter, who was a fan of the show, used to call him Troy McClure behind his back. Doug McClure apparently was a fan of the character and found the parody to be very funny and flattering. As mentioned, the majority of Troy McClure's appearances were in instructional or educational videos, daytime TV infomercials, and movies within the show. And sometimes those fucking appearances served no real purpose other than to be a gag, but more often than not, they were expository of the subject matter of said episodes, similar to the Itchy and Scratchy show. They were somewhat contextually appropriate for the episode's subject matter. Of course, Phil Hartman is one of those voice actors that even when he's doing a voice, you know it's Phil Hartman, but McClure's voice was different enough from Lionel Hutz, it was able to mask the fact that it was the same voice actor. A Fish Called Selma is often cited by many as a top 10 of all time episode due to the story between Selma and Troy, as well as giving McClure some great character development. It plays up on the fact that his career is not what it once was, that he's hanging on to his old 80s car and driving with poor vision, and he's just kind of way past the wonder years. He happens to come across Selma while getting his license updated at the DMV, and the two go out together. This gains him some attention from paparazzi again, and his agent, who hasn't called him in years, starts encouraging him to get married and have a family to boost his public appeal in order to get him a role in a McBain movie. Throughout the episode, Selma finds out that it is in fact a loveless marriage, but she's fine with it because she's taken care of and gets to live in luxury and gets to fuck Troy McClure. However, she changes her tone on the subject when the idea of having a kid is brought up, not wanting to bring a child into a loveless relationship. The final shot we see of Troy McClure is pretty heavy. I actually love how this was drawn and colored. It's great. And it's revealed that Troy McClure did not get the part in McBain and is instead starring in a movie called The Contrabulous Fabtraption of Professor Horatio Huffnagel. I think if this was the final appearance of Troy McClure, it would be pretty good. Like, that would be the appropriate send-off for the character, but of course the writers could not have predicted the fact that he would be killed 2 years later. You know, aside from the whole thing where he fucks fish, I don't know who let that go in there. Like, it's funny, but it's just like, you're kind of burying the character. It's worth noting that before Phil Hartman's death, him and Matt Groening were actually working on a live-action Troy McClure movie. Not a lot of details on it came out. I think it was in the very early stages, but, you know, then what happened. But it would have been weird, but fuck, I would have checked it out. I do really like both of these characters. They're both staples of The Simpsons, but my personal preference between Hartman roles is Lionel Hutz.
You've got some attitude, mister.
Less appearances, but more substance. It's just a shame that we didn't get a major spotlight episode for Lionel Hutz in the same vein as we got for McClure. But it is what it is. Also, I find it strange that not once did these two characters appear in the same scene with one another in a speaking role or have any interaction whatsoever. That would have been a neat interaction, but I guess due to the context in which either of these characters would appear, it would have been really hard to work in without forcing it. Phil Hartman did voice a handful of other characters throughout the series. Just to name a few, he voiced the Cable Guy, Horace, Fat Tony when he was standing in for Joe Montana. It was weird, but I'll play the clip.
No, what I said was he sleeps with the fishes.
He also voiced God, Bill Clinton, Nelson's dad in one of his early appearances, and a few others, but his most noteworthy roles besides Hutz and McClure were Lyle Lanley and Bart's big brother Tom. Season 4 was really Phil Hartman's season. Lyle Lanley is a one-off character from Marge vs. the Monorail. He's a pretty good character, but I felt the role was just a little too similar to Lionel Hutz. He used kind of the same voice, and Lanley was a shifty con man. He's funny, I like the character, and Hartman's performance is great, but yeah, he's basically just a kind of great value version of Lionel Hutz. His other role, Bart's big brother Tom from Brother from the Same Planet, is a stereotypical cool dude. Like, he's really someone a kid Bart's age would love. He's a good character and makes for some good moments, and he gets a much more optimistic conclusion when he takes Peppy with him. And, you know, honestly, I really hope that in the universe of the show, these two are still connected to each other. But Hartman kind of just stopped playing other roles after a while and was relegated to just playing Hutz and McClure, which I have no complaints about. After Phil Hartman's passing, it was decided by the staff of The Simpsons to retire both Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure. Lionel Hutz had his final appearance in the season 9 episode Realty Bites, in which he is the head of a real estate agency that Marge gets employed at. It's pretty solid, it's one of the better season 9 entries, and a lot of that has to do with Hutz's appearance. The sleaze factors really turned up, specifically with this line.
But there's the truth and the truth.
I think this was probably the best send-off they could have given Lionel Hutz as a character, given, you know, what happened. Troy McClure's conclusion was much less large in scale. He appeared in Season 10's Bart the Mother, where he just does another educational video appearance, which really, there was no other way to send him off. This was perfect. However, this wasn't supposed to actually be his final appearance. He was supposed to appear in another Season 10 episode, Treehouse of Horror 9. He was to be in the Hell to Pay segment, where he was to host the execution of Snake, but it was decided that due to the morbid nature of this scene, they would replace him with Ed McMahon out of respect. Fun fact, that would have actually been Troy McClure's first appearance in a Treehouse of Horror episode. Lionel Hutz had appeared in a Treehouse of Horror episode 5 years prior in Treehouse of Horror 4. I'm assuming that this scene actually does exist, at least the audio does, because they replaced him out of respect. It wasn't like they said, oh, he got shot and then we couldn't do the part anymore. So I'm kind of curious. I wonder if this will ever be released. Hashtag release the McClure cut. Following their retirement, Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz would sometimes appear in crowd shots or in the background in non-speaking roles, but as far as their characters were concerned, they were done. Without Phil Hartman, there was no point, as nobody could really recapture the magic of both these characters, and nobody should even try. It should be noted that the role of Zap Brannigan in Futurama was actually written for Phil Hartman specifically, and Billy West does his best Phil Hartman impression when he voices the role. And Fry's first name Philip was picked as a tribute to Phil Hartman. I think the only circumstance in which I'd ever want to see any of these characters again would be if Billy West did the voice. I think he's the only one who could possibly pull these characters off, but even then, what could The Simpsons really do with these characters now that it's ran itself into the ground? The passing of Phil Hartman and subsequent loss of Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure as recurring characters in The Simpsons dealt a huge blow to the quality of the series. Many have cited that it was shortly after these two characters retired that the show took its first real dump in quality. Can this be blamed entirely entirely on the loss of these two iconic characters. No, not entirely, but they always acted as a good go-to character for a laugh. However, I'm kinda glad we didn't get McClure during the gross-out phase of the show. Maybe we would have actually seen him have sex with a fish on screen. Probably not, but either way, perhaps the show could have stayed the course had they not lost Phil Hartman. Instead, they made the Gil character the Simpsons lawyer, which is pretty ironic because Gil's first appearance was in Lionel Hutz' final appearance. It's almost like an unintentional passing of the torch. Also, yeah, I'm gonna bring this up. 4 months before Phil Hartman's death, in the credits of the episode All Singing, All Dancing, when it goes on Phil Hartman's name, the fucking gunshots ring off. It's troubling, especially given the Simpsons' whole mystique with predicting the future. I hate it, but I really don't think it should be edited out just because of how creepy it is. I know it's completely unintentional, but ugh, gives me a chill. Phil Hartman will forever be remembered by fans of both The Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, and other comedy films and television series. It's a little known fact that Hartman was born in Canada, in Brantford, Ontario, just an hour-and-a-half drive outside of Toronto. He truly is a Canadian hero, and honestly, I think we should campaign to get a statue of either Hartman himself, Troy McClure, or Lionel Hutz built in Brantford. Just an idea. What are your favorite Lionel Hutz or Troy McClure moments? Let me know in the comments. So that was my first part of the tribute to Phil Hartman. Another part covering his other work will be coming at some point in the future. Of course, now it's time to move to my Halloween videos, and I have a fucking treat for all of you guys. 6 videos this Halloween. Subscribe, like, or whatever. Happy Halloween, bitches.
Mr. Hutz, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer just like you.
Good for you, son. If there's one thing America needs, it's more lawyers. Can you imagine a world without lawyers? Oh.
I hate every ape I see, from chimpanzee to chimpanzee. No, you'll never make a monkey out of me. Oh my God, I was wrong. It was Earth all along. You finally made a monkey.
Yes, we finally made a monkey.
Yes, you finally made a monkey out of me. I love you, Dr. Zayas.